Good afternoon and welcome back to the Nerves Podcast. I am Bats. I'm going to be doing a first look today of Gordy Murphy's Mainframe. It is a game that came out relatively recently. It was up on the Itch Popular page for a while. I know Gordy. Gordy knows me, so I thought it'd be a good idea to maybe talk about this game because I think it looks really interesting, and I was privy to some of the development process as Gordy was talking about making it and things of that nature, so I'm really curious to see this. So I've downloaded the game. We're going to open it now. It is 60 pages, and the main cover is very nice. The art is very pretty in this game, I know that much. I saw a lot of the art that Gordy was making, and from what I understand, the art is computer generated using AI. So like Gordy would filter images through a computer, through an AI, that would end up creating what we see in the book. So yeah, it's called Mainframe. We'll scroll down. So the sections, we have the intro, the setting, the characters, the rules, and then running the game. So what I'm going to be looking at when it comes to a game like this, because it's not powered by the apocalypse, I'm not entirely sure what the system is yet. What I'm going to look for are things that make me want to play it, because that's what I'm always looking for in a game. And what that means is either good character options, good ideas. Those are probably it. Those are the two things. Good ideas and character options. Those are the things I'm always looking for when it comes to deciding if I want to play a game. And I guess third would be, I might put this in with the ideas, but does the game give me enough stuff to play it without having to sit there and think about it for a while? Like the running the game section. Is there enough stuff there for me to immediately begin to play? So we're going to go ahead and start scrolling through and seeing what we see. First up, we have the introduction, which has this really colorful and beautiful illustration. It looks like we're looking down a hallway that has been warped, and no, not a hallway, a building. It looks like kind of two buildings coming to meet in the center of the frame with these geometric shapes kind of laid over them. But it is this beautiful blue, purplish color, very dark blue maybe, with this pink kind of at the center. It's very colorful. It gives me a feeling of like I'm looking at one of the robots from the Matrix. So we're going to start off by just reading the "What is this game?" section. Mainframe is a cyberpunk game in which the players play as mercenaries, often operating outside the law, who specialize in hunting down, capturing, or deleting rogue and dangerous AI programs. Each session is a mission to find and deal with one of the AI programs in cyberspace. So that sounds great already. That sounds like my cup of tea. Cyberpunk got me going. Dangerous AIs that have gone rogue got me going. Cyberspace, I'm ready. There are safety tools. Let me see if they mention anything specific that might be triggering about the content. Okay, no, so there isn't anything that they are mentioning that is inherent in the game that would make it triggering to somebody reading it, but they mentioned that they mentioned the safety tools so that you can, as a group, decide what not to put into your game, just in general. So certain concepts or ideas that aren't necessarily inherent to Cyberpunk or to Mainframe as a game, but that could come up. They give you some options like the X card, a script change, lines and veils, so that you can work those out together. Then we get into a section called the setting. Mainframe changed everything. We abandoned our physical bodies, becoming permanently wired to the consensual, shared hallucination that is cyberspace. At first, we had some control over it. Teams of programmers spent long hours scripting behaviors, coding interactions, making Mainframe something that superseded the physical world. For a little while, it was open and free. But then some megacorp figured out it was easier, cheaper, and faster to turn over the maintenance of Mainframe to an AI. Before long, all other megacorps followed suit, trying to make sure that their interests in Mainframe were taken care of. making sure they had control over it. Before too long, it wasn't a few AI, it was 1,000. Maybe tens of thousands, no one is sure anymore. In the cyberspace playground, the AI grew, developed, and got smarter. They learned to make more of themselves. They absorbed data from the previous physical world and used it to simulate all of those interactions in Mainframe. They started really thinking, started dreaming, started interpreting what they thought the minutiae of human life meant, and poured all of their dreams into cyberspace. So we're living in an AI hellscape dream world right now. That's great. I really love that, actually. I was kind of sold at the "we abandoned our physical bodies" idea. I don't know, I like that. I like the idea of, like, basically being in the internet. That is a fun idea that I've always loved since I saw Code Lyoko back in the day. I'm looking at this art. This piece of art here. What page would this be on? Page 8. There's this really beautiful piece of art that reminds me of Blom. It is of basically an upside-down skyline, buildings sticking down from this glowing ethereal sky, and this person standing there looking up at them. It's a very beautiful piece of art. Then it goes on to talk about cyberspace. The laws of cyberspace roughly map to the laws of the abandoned physical world. I think that's basically saying, like physics and everything like that works the same, even though you're in sort of like this dream cyberspace. As I'm kind of just scrolling down to look at this, everything seems to be handled in very terse paragraphs, which I like. I like that there's not a lot of time spent explaining everything, just as much words that they thought was necessary to get the idea across. Like here in the detailing the world section, they give you very short ways to create the world, so you don't have to spend a lot of time doing it. I like that already. So all you have to do to create a world is introduce a mega corporation, describe a way Mainframe manifests in the server you're playing in, and introduce a technological system that is important to the world. So that's great. So basically those are the three building blocks to the conflict: the mega corporation, the ways that Mainframe exists, and then the technological systems that the AI can attack that you might have to try to save and protect. Then we jump right into creating characters. Again, we have this really cool piece of art. I really like whatever Gordy did to these photos, if they are photos or if they're illustrations, I don't know. Whatever they did to these pictures, though, makes them look, I feel like I'm an AI. Like this is what an AI would see looking at a human. It's really great. So creating characters, you play as cyberpunk mercenaries skilled at hunting down rogue AI programs. You're permanently wired into Mainframe, your equipment-coded programs that your avatar wields. You have 4 stats: mod, sense, affinity, and rep. Okay, so these are, I like these. The last 3 seem pretty standard. There's sense, which is your ability to process information, so like perception, stuff like that. There's rep, so your ability to persuade people. It's your reputation. Affinity is your control over your avatar in digital space. So I get the feeling that you'll be able to try to manipulate the space around you. And then you have mod, which is your capacity to change cyberspace, including hacking. So I get the feeling you'll be able to, change the environment around you and change how your character acts in the world. And those are your stats. Those are like how you combat these AI. To create your character, it gives you a list of what you need to do. Choose a name, pronouns, appearance. You assign points to your stats. You choose a background, so there's backgrounds up here. And then you add 8 to your affinity stat to determine your starting sync. A sync represents your connection to Mainframe, so that's your health. So this is very OSR. It's very Troika. It's very into the odd. I like that. It's very simple, very easy to get into. It looks like you could make a character literally with a couple rolls of the dice, and that's it. You're good to go. There are some character tables here, so you can roll randomly for your background. Looks like that's actually the rule. It says roll 3d6 on the background table and 2d6 on the cybernetic program and flaw table. If we were to roll one right now, we might get a journalist with cyber eyes who makes a lot of noise. We might get a thief with an internal database and a shorter lifespan. So they're just like three little pieces of information, and you can throw them together and create your character. I like how quick it is. I like how open it is. Like, what is an infiltrator? Maybe it'll tell us later on, maybe it won't. Whether it does or not, you don't know as you're rolling it. So you're just like, ooh, infiltrator, and your mind begins to start coming up with what your character actually does. You know, the cybernetics, they're very open. Reinforced spine. That sounds great. Synthetic organ. One of the flaws, oh gosh. One of the flaws is serves you ads. So you might have artificial legs that serve you ads. And if I was like the game master or something, you know, maybe serving you ads would be like the legs start guiding you towards the nearest McDonald's so that you can stare, you know, at the food that it wants you to stare at. That's pretty fun. That sounds fun. Then you have your RAM, which represents currency that you can use to generate programs on the fly. Ooh. So since you're in the cybernetic space, everything is data. And you have this currency, your RAM, your memory, that lets you just create these programs. And if you look down here, we have a list of programs like electronics toolkit, explosives, silencer, fake ID. So basically anything, any object, any item can be reproduced. And you can even use this list here of programs to extrapolate on to figure other stuff out. And they even kind of expand on it further down with things like weapons, comms gear, surveillance systems. So it's a very simple currency system. Go on to the cybernetics, which again has a very simple system. Each cybernetic costs RAM, and they're either custom jobs or they're street jobs. You get paid for your work in advancements, so leveling up is literally the reward for a job. And then you choose one thing with every advancement. So you can get a stat reward or you can get a gear reward. Very simple, very effective. The character sheet is very nice, very easily laid out, very easily readable. And then we get this really trippy image of a human's head. Oh, it's wild. It's hard to even describe what the art looks like to those of you listening. I will probably be putting these images in the video, but you should really look at this art. It is unique and fascinating. After the character stuff, we start to get into the rules, how you resolve actions. Looks like it's a 2d6 system, and then you add the relevant stat. And instead of using the Powered by the Apocalypse method, they have they call it a difficulty score, a DS, instead of a DC from like Dungeons & Dragons. So you would assign a number based on one of the guidelines that they list, and you would be trying to roll over that. Okay, so glitches and corruptions is the next section, and it's a very interesting concept because you're in this cybernetic world, and it's meta in a lot of ways. This is because it says here the 2 dice you roll represent different AI rendering your actions. So every time you're doing something, it's actually 2 different AI that are kind of working in tandem together to create the effects that you see in the computer. And whenever you roll the dice, you compare them. If the difference between them is greater than your mod, Mainframe glitches. For example, if your mod is 1 and you rolled a 2 and a 4, Mainframe glitches. Okay. And then it says it's up to the GM to interpret how the glitch manifests. It could mean a complication ensues. You could become disoriented or lose hold of something. It can also add additional flavor to the result of the roll. Every 5 glitches, the current server becomes corrupted until the end of the session. So when a server is corrupted, it says that there are visual and aesthetic changes, making the mainframe seem even stranger. But then there's also the server itself just begins to break down throughout the session. So it gives you a kind of a bit of a clock, a bit of a ticking time bomb there, where the more you play, the more likely glitches are going to be. It seems like glitches are already rather common, depending on your mod score, of course. But glitches are going to happen, and as you're hunting down these rogue AIs, these servers are going to become corrupted and they are going to be destroyed. It talks about advantage and disadvantage, which is a pretty common rule in most games, tabletop role-playing games now, and it's a very effective one. It talks about antagonists, It talks about hunting the AI. Yeah, it's basically giving you different ideas of how to handle the AI. Like it says, some employers might want the AI deleted, others might want to delete the copies but keep the original, stuff like that. So it's less telling you, the player, how to take care of this and more of giving the game master ideas for how to present more challenges. Damage and sink. If a situation presents a risk to you or the target of your action, yeah, it's just talking about how to recover your sync after you lose it. So a good night's rest in a safe place gets you a D8, and a quick rest is a D3. And then when you die, quote unquote, when your sync, your health drops to 0, you have to reboot. Oh, and this is interesting. When you reboot, you uncover a memory from before your life in Mainframe. Write down that memory. How does this connection with your previous life change you? What do you know that you didn't before? So that's fun. That's like a way to make death, as I assume it would be kind of common in a virtual world, sort of like respawning in a video game, making death interesting as you kind of get to uncover and learn about your own character as you do it. Oh, we're just scrolling through now. There's a really beautiful image of like a lotus flower surrounded by a metal lotus flower on page 29. It's really beautiful. You can gain connections. You can call on favors. Favors can be called on from you. Hacking. And this is all going off of the DS system. So basically, everything looks like it's handled through that. You know, if you're trying to get a connection, if you're trying to call on a favor, if you're trying to hack, you're going to be rolling with a stat to try to beat the DS. When it comes to running the game, it says overall your job as the GM is to plunge your players into the psychedelic, strange, ever-changing environment that is cyberspace. I like the word psychedelic. It looks like they use clocks here for the hunt. So you draw a clock, give it a certain amount of segments from 4 to 8, depending on how difficult the task is supposed to be, and then they fill in clocks as they're hunting down this AI, and when the clock is filled, there you go. You find him. I think it's a clever way of doing it, because it's almost like a expanded on and more interesting skill check from 5th edition D&D. So everybody is kind of trying to do something to fill in the clock so that they can keep progressing and moving towards finding this AI so they can take it down. Ooh, okay. Here's where we start to get into some of the meat and bones of the game. A lot of this is sort of like advice, general advice throughout the game. You know, it just feels like the writer is talking to you like, hey, you could do this. There's this idea. And then we get here to the server creation steps, and they give you defined steps for creating a server with these very nicely laid out geometrical shapes with D6, 2D6 tables for creating what the server type, the server models, the server aesthetic, locations, rumors. So let's just create one right now and see what happens. So the server type, we get a security server. Okay, that sounds dangerous. Ooh la la. The server model, it looks like a cave system. Okay, so it's a security server type set up like a cave system. So that makes sense for security. Lots of dead ends, a lot of pitfalls, things like that. The aesthetic is noir. So we have a lot of harsh shadows, a lot of black and white, a lot of drama. So locations kind of help you decide what this server was used for. And let's go ahead and we'll pick shopping. So it is a security server that is set up like a cave system with the noir aesthetic, and it is mainly used as a shopping center. And then you get some rumors that kind of can lead you to an AI to hunt down. And our rumor is hacker activity. So that is 5 tables, so 5 rolls of a 2d6, or you could just roll one, or a set of d6 and take that through all 5 tables. And it's laid out in a very aesthetically pleasing way. I like that. Oh, and then they give you some example servers after that. So you can create your own, but then they give you, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 pre-made servers with a lot more information, pre-made locations, pre-made rumors, and pre-made jobs there at the servers. That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for in a game. You give me enough of these so that I can just pick this and run with it. Let's see if they do the same thing with AI. So I'm scrolling through the AI now, and it looks like what they do is actually more of a statless approach to AI, which can be maybe a little daunting for like first-time GMs and maybe even first-time readers. But what I like about this, the way of doing it this way, is that what you can do is focus more on how the players want to take down the AI, as opposed to, oh, they need to roll this dice to, do this much damage. So let's read one of these and let's see if it is evocative or strange even, because the world is supposed to be like the surrealist nightmare. So we'll take a look at the Phantom. Phantoms appear as enormous dark owls. Different companies have put out their own versions of the Phantom software, but Exogen Securities Inc. holds the original patent. Phantoms were created as tracker programs to hunt down hackers or anyone who crossed the owning entity, no matter how slight an infraction. Every now and then you'll catch a glimpse of their wings. These programs can be found anywhere their quarries travel. They've been known to slip around security systems and get inside servers to follow their prey. Some Phantoms take their duties a little too far, following people long after needed or shifting their focus to connected targets. Phantoms take mementos, sometimes siphoning off pieces of code and incorporating them into themselves. Phantoms can sever someone's connection to Mainframe almost instantly and follow them through any number of security checkpoints. Phantoms have been known to disable other programs suddenly and completely. So that is equally weird, interesting, and usable. It gives you a lot of different ways to interact with the players. Just right there at the end, you can shut down other programs suddenly or completely. So like a rogue Phantom AI could be causing quite the havoc in a server just by shutting down the important systems that were detailed earlier. And I also like that the idea that Phantoms take mementos. You could really run with that. You could have this strange owl creature that has parts from all of your various friends as it has been slowly hunting you down, going through all of your contacts. That is equally creepy, and that makes me want to play it. That, with the server, the very simple server setup, the very simple character creation, and now the Phantom just alone, not even reading the other AI, I can see that Gordy definitely has a strong direction that they want to take, and they have stuck with it. Scrolling further down past these horrifying images, these look like some H.R. Geiger images, but they are fascinating. Mainframe is truly a unique experience to look at, and that alone, I've often said that art can make a game. It can make a game that isn't much into something spectacular, and it can turn a great idea into something fully realized, and this definitely feels more like the latter. It's a simple idea done well, because you could have easily just written it up and not paid too much attention to the art, because art can be expensive, and I think this is Gordy's first game, or one of their first games, so it could be really easy to just make the game and hope that the ideas, push it alone. But this art, looking at it, it is hard not to get ideas for Mainframe. It's hard to not get that feeling of weirdness that Gordy is trying to push. But we also start to get into some job prompts here on the last page, 2d6 job prompts. So if you need a quick job, you can roll. And that's the end of the game. So there is, quite a few different roll tables. There's a lot of text, I will say. There's a lot of reading where it might have benefited to have more tables. Just for like the quick lookup. I'm glad that the servers are kind of handled that way. I'm glad there's some job prompts that way, and I'm glad character creation is handled that way. But when it comes to some of the other stuff that you might be like trying to figure out, like the hacking, there's not a lot of personalization there. There's a lot of freedom for the players and the GM to make what they want, but not a lot to go off of besides that. So if you have a hard time coming up with things like that on the spot, it could be difficult for you. But other than that, like I said, it is a very beautiful game. I highly suggest you pick it up, even if only to look at the art. But beyond that, it's a very simple to set up game. It looks like it would be very simple to run and has a episodic structure that would make it great for a one-shot, and if your party loved it, you could keep it going and take it into a campaign. But yeah, that was Mainframe by Gordy Murphy. It is on itch.io. Go pick it up, go leave a review, go rate it, support small creators, and until next time, good luck. Don't die.